Welcome back to the Backyard Gardens podcast, ladies and gentlemen. It is Reckoning Day on the show. I don't know any other way to say it. This is our second Reckoning Day of the year. The first Reckoning Day was fails for the year. This one is, did we actually meet our goals from last year? So Leonard has provided Batavia and I a list, or Batavia, not me, because I don't remember my goals. The goal is to just go through life and see if we make them. So,
well, you made it through that last year.
I did make it through life. Do you think, just glancing at it, are you impressed or depressed by the outcome?
Neither. I'm definitely not impressed, but
Okay.
this isn't something that's going to depress me. It is something that is making me look again at my current year goals.
Oh, making you reevaluate?
Grudgingly. Mm-hmm.
That's always fun. Okay.
Well, just looking again.
Well, before
No
we
commitments.
get into our introspective, let's do this. You're watching the Backyard Podcast, ladies and gentlemen, gardeners and homesteaders. I am your host, Ben, and I am with my co-host, Miss Batavia. Say hi. If you'd like to start support the show, stuttered there. You can do so by becoming a patron, becoming a subscriber, buying some seeds from us. We're adding new products hopefully soon to the shop, and then also checking out the Amazon list below. There's a lot of good stuff in there. Everything is stuff that we've used in our gardens and we recommend and stand behind, and still use them more than likely. And also get the planner app. But we'll talk about that later. That may even come up in this show. It's funny how it seems to come up often. All right. Who do you want to go first? You're in charge of this whole show. So go for it.
Yeah. So there's some spoilers in this show, and I'm not going to give them away. So I'm going to go ahead and position you as the first. And I simply have a note from Leonard that says thinning. There's some context here, but I want to see how close you are to remembering what you committed to last year as a goal.
Thinning?
Thinning, yeah. Thinning in your garden. You wanted to do more of it. It's the bane of your existence, as is mine.
I did really good at it. I just thinned. Well, no. If I had to guess, particularly what I was referring to would be carrots. Is that correct?
You reference carrots as an example.
Okay. So for my carrots, I did three different forms of thinning because I wanted to see how it affected the growth. I did very good thinning, not so good thinning, and no thinning. And I'm just going to let y'all guess which one did the best. We also planted a little bit different. So, carrot seeds are kind of a pain. So instead of just sprinkling them down the row, I would put them in like patches about where I wanted them to space. And that helped me get ahead of it. I did a lot of good thinning throughout the year, but in the fall, I did not thin my rutabagas, and I'm paying the price right now. So there is that. And that's typical of me. I usually fall flat towards the fall, getting burned out. So is there anything else that I said that I would do?
No, you specifically mentioned carrots, and you talked about kind of the nightmare of sorts that it was the previous year, with maybe not so great thinning.
Yeah.
You did talk about kind of season to season, so I'm interested to hear kind of as you got to fall how that turned out. Or I was interested to hear. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Well,
I
no, go ahead. I changed my mind.
No, I was going to put the spotlight on me. Go ahead.
I changed my mind on what I was going to say because I don't know what the other goals are, so I don't want to get ahead of it. And if I may come back to it. Oh.
Yeah, so I was just going to comment that this wasn't even on my radar at all last year, other than like the conversation we had. And the first thing, kind of one of the first things I planted in the spring of last year was, sow carrot seeds. And I also did some beets. And I did a really good job at fitting both of those. I I think I had like 3 rows of carrots, and I had thinned 2.5 of them. And my beets, I thinned them so much so where I was able to replant some of the seedlings. So they all did well. And then when it came to beets that were planted in the summer, throw it all away.
Hmm.
Like so I'm making that connection to like your rutabagas in the fall. The get up and go out and do the thing that you know is going to benefit you. I just didn't have the steam coming
Yeah.
into later into the year. And it's not even like they were for fall, but it wasn't even fall time. It was like pretty well into summer.
Yeah.
And so that's the height of the garden season. So it's interesting to see while it wasn't my goal, it was something that I know that I need to do. But in both of our cases, we started out strong and yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
the force wasn't with us towards the end.
I didn't fall very flat, totally flat, but there was, I remember with the rutabagas, I was looking at them and I was like, you got to thin them, you got to thin them. And then I don't know
Hmm.
what happened, but somehow time got away. Now, I will
Yeah.
say, and this is totally a product of when we do make our goals.
Hmm.
I was very, very good at thinning my seedlings in the, like when they're on the seed shelf back here. I was really good at that. So, that made a huge, huge difference. Actually, it made the difference that it made was my plants got too big too fast. So,
Interesting. Yeah.
because there was just not competing for nutrients. But
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm gonna stay strong and keep going.
Yeah, I think you may be on to something about we made these goals pretty early in the year around seed starting time, so maybe it's more top of mind. But I generally do a really good job because it's just there's so much more of a comfort for me to be able to manage plants indoors. I have my chair, I have my coffee, which I typically stick to coffee versus other beverages because I need to be able to concentrate. I may have a show on. And so it's like it's a place of calm, and so I don't mind, thinning after thinning after thinning after thinning. Outside, like, I only did 2.5 rows of the carrots because I was like, my back, my
Yeah.
my neck and my back, and that's, a half a row I missed was in the center, right? So, I mean, I think it's thinning some, versus none is a win. I'm
You,
gonna take it
you
for
want to know
you.
how I thin my carrots?
How's that?
I laid down in the garden and did it. I just straight laid
Mhm.
down and just picked my head up over the edge of the garden. And I mean, because it's like, you start going through and you're like, nah, I'm not playing this
Yeah,
game. So I just laid right
yeah.
down and went through it. And look, did I get dirty? Absolutely. I'm always dirty. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, I wanna see your wingspan once we get off. Like, I think you could probably easily get to
I
that
can,
center.
yeah, my arm's
Yeah.
3 feet long, so
Mhm,
I can
mhm.
get over there. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's one of those things. All right. You were supposed to
Alright,
remind me
so
of, hold on, wait. You're supposed to remind me
mhm.
of something,
Well, I was
a name.
yeah, as soon as you started out, yeah. Mary Beth.
Thank you. Mary Beth, you left a comment on Facebook. I meant to do this in the beginning of the show. I'm sorry. You left a comment on the Facebook asking about the books that I was reading at one point in my life about, it was the Christian novels about a solar
Mm,
flare and how they banded together and as a community to flourish. And in that conversation, specifically, we're talking about an old woman who was reusing plastic containers to start food in her garden. Nobody had thought of it. I couldn't remember the name. I found it. It's Terry Stock, I think, or Terry Blackwell. Damn, I can't remember now. Anyways, and the title of the book is Last Light, and it's a trilogy. So Last Light. Damn, I think it's Terry Blackwell. I don't know where Stock came from. So check that out.
Last, LAST
Yeah,
or blast? Like
last.
okay.
Yeah, Lima Alpha Sierra Tango Light. So check that out. It's really good. And it's not, if you're not like a Christian or anything, it's not like super, super religious, but it's a Christian author. So kids can read it. It's, very good. And it is God centered, but not crazy. But I'm a Christian, so I don't care if it is crazy God centered. Okay. That's
Okay.
it. Now you can go.
So well, thanks for tracking that down or stumbling across that or however you came to it.
Oh, no. It was totally selfish. I searched it out so I could read it. And there was
Mm.
like, I'm using my son's Kindle because he doesn't use it. I've never used one. I hate it, but I have it. And on the digital library, it was a 16-week wait to get it.
Oh
So
wow.
I found it. Let's put it that way.
Okay. All right. Good job. All right, so I'm gonna skip around, and once we get to the end of the episode, you'll know why for mine, and maybe I'll skip around for yours as well. So one of mine last year was plan a portion of my warm weather plants by May 1. I put all kinds of caveats. Even in the episode, Leonard has a note that was like, "Oh, you wanted to move this to like just the first week of May." Um, so as an update, I didn't meet either of those. So I didn't make I had things in the garden for spring, but my garden goal was very specific about warm weather plants.
Right.
So I did make May 1st. And if we're doing just the general 7-day week, I did make the first week of May. I look back on my notes, which interestingly enough, we talked about documentation in a recent episode. I look back on my notes, and the first thing that I got out into the garden that could even be deemed summer plantings or warm weather plantings was May the 18th. So that's like, or was it May 17th? Either way, that's well into the third week of the month. And it was tumbling Tom tomato. So truly a summer planting. I didn't go back to like my videos or anything because I probably have some like, run on explanation as to why, um, or what was happening at that time. So I won't even say that I would have any evidence of why, because I know that that goal wasn't in front of me. Like by the time we got to April, I'm sure I didn't remember May 1 was my goal, which we briefly talked about. Like that's just the worst plan ever.
Yeah.
Make the goals, don't if you don't make like what are the steps you're going to take to actually achieve those goals, and you don't keep the goals in front of you. So that's why we get here. And there was one summer thing that I planted, but all in all, 3 weeks. I know for sure I went with a tumbling Tom because I knew they would be the first to produce. Um, it's like three plants that I put into like a hanging basket. And they for sure cherry tomatoes. They for sure were the first to produce. So yeah, like flop, like 0 out of 10. Didn't win.
That's not good.
No, no. And that was
Well,
when I looked at the notes, this was really important to me as well because I had evidence from other gardeners that really indicated May 1 is very possible. It's not as dangerous from a cold temperature perspective as I've thought in the years past. Because that's been the whole, there have been two holdups. One, is it really warm enough for these plants to sustain themselves? And two, um, and which is the biggest, which I'm sure was what led me to not meeting, the day last year was um, doing other stuff in the garden. There was a big gap between when I planted for spring and then my next planting. So a lot of stuff in April,
right.
and then almost like a 3 week gap or something.
Okay. I got to ask you a
Melon,
question.
the other ones I direct sowed melon seeds.
I got to ask you a question. You ready?
Mhm.
Okay. So, first of all, during this exchange, if anything makes you feel uncomfortable or you do not want to continue on, you let me know. But we need to diagnose this situation. We are putting ourselves on out. We're airing our dirty laundry in this episode. I've known you for 5 years,
Mhm.
maybe 6.
6.
God, has it been 6 years really? And every year you want to start earlier. Do you think?
No, no.
No,
Every
no.
year I don't want to start earlier. More than half of these years I wanted to start
Okay.
earlier. This is me stalling the conversation. So ultimately, once we get middle way through, he'll abandon ship. This is all strategy. It's all manipulation here. Continue.
I'm unmanipulated. Um, so my question is, do you think you're a little too cautious?
Yes.
How can you break the mold? And the reason why I want to ask you like this is because I have a feeling there's other people listening that same thing, So,
Yeah.
what in a way that would make you comfortable? How can you break that?
So I'm going to start off with saying I stand corrected. I was planting things in April. So I have April 27th, May 2nd, May 3rd, May 4th, May, then it skips to May 17th. So something happened where there was like a 2 week gap. But I bring that back around because I was still planting very much cool weather crops at the beginning of May. And all that tells me is it's not as much as, hey, I'm cautious around getting my cool weather or my warm weather plants out at the beginning of May. It's I have my hands full with getting those first plants out for spring,
Yeah.
right? And so it goes back to the top of, oh, you want to plant earlier. It's just a domino effect. So if I'm just planting potatoes at the end of April, the beginning of May, I have a one track mind of get things in for spring. You have to focus on that because there's a window that those things have before it gets too warm for them. So I got to keep on plugging away at that. And all that tells me is, how do I get past this? All that tells me is everything we've talked about as far as planting and scheduling. Like, the best way for me to win is truly to get out those first plants as early as possible. So if I go back to the notes that I have here, and forgive me for looking down if you're seeing this online, I direct sowed some collards May 15th. That's winning for me.
That's super late
I don't
though.
if it's ever happened, I don't know, I can't remember it. The next thing went in where I transplanted some things April 19th. There's your hole.
Wait. Okay, so
Yeah.
you said you direct sowed collards May 15th. Did
Mhm.
those collards grow all the way until winter and you were able to continuously harvest them?
No, that it's a tragic story about those. Those collards did come up. I had some pest issues I just couldn't get my hands around later in the
Yeah.
spring, so I ended up the ones that I had out there in the fall were new transplants.
Well, would they
But
have made it to fall if the didn't have the pest issue?
under normal circumstances, yes.
Okay, so with that being said, you're May 15th for that. I mean, look, it's late in my opinion, but it's not the worst, right? Because you're getting a whole summer.
March 15th.
March. No, you said May 15th in the beginning.
Well, I meant March 15th.
Oh, well, that. Damn, I hope I didn't mishear
Well, yeah,
it.
that's the whole
The
thing
whole
what I say.
conversation
So I said,
changes.
yeah, So March 15th, I direct sowed collards, and
Okay,
that's why I'm all like, that's the earliest. I
and
don't know
that's
if I've ever
good.
planted that early. The next planting date that I made note of is April 19th. That's
So
more
you
than a
waited a
month
month.
later. That's the whole.
What was the next thing you
Meaning I
planted?
didn't nothing went into the garden until a month later, mid-April, almost closer to the end of April. That was me transplanting some it looks like kale and, believe it or not, kohlrabi.
Dude, you could have put that out very close to when you did your collards.
Mm. I'm not going to pull up the time and date to look at the weather, but
Yeah.
generally speaking, I'm going to assume that, yeah, I could have. I also started with some onions and then did some lettuce in that. But this is the key. If I look back, and this is the reason for me at least, and probably for some of y'all as well, having these notes now, I'm super diligent about it. And March, April, May, beginning of June. And then it's like, I must have had some type of virus on my phone or something because
Yeah.
I totally did. But um, that was all in one single bed, and then I focused on another bed,
Okay.
and then I focused on another bed. So you can very much see how I am. And on one hand, that makes sense to me, but this really goes down to, did I really know what I was going to plant and where I was going to plant those onions on April the 21st? So anyway, that's from my view of this. I've planted things the very first week of April. In this instance, the majority of what I'm planting for spring isn't going in until like starting in the third week of April,
Okay.
right? That's a problem. And all that does is push everything back, which leads me to, so you can look at this as I could have put the goal April 1st for, my spring, May 1st for my summer. I could have put it March 15th for my spring, you know, April 25th for my summer. Anyway, all of that said, there's evidence here that I am in the garden for clusters of time, but because of the late start to begin with, everything is just later. Now,
Yeah.
at any point, I could have, when I was doing potatoes on May 3rd, I could have also planted tomatoes. I could have, you
Yeah.
know,
You could have.
but
But, one thing I will say, we do need to move on.
mhm,
But one thing I will say is planting potatoes is more labor intensive than planting tomatoes.
mhm.
And I usually, when I plant my potatoes, I hate saying those two things back to back. Um, I usually plant my potatoes, and then that's all I'll plant for the day, just because it's a lot, and it depends on the
Yeah.
quantity too. But so I get it, but I'm going to say this: if you plant your potatoes, if you're waiting until May to plant your potatoes, you need to plant them in like early April, because one thing I've learned about potatoes is
Mhm.
everybody's scared about the frost, but you know what? When they're really small and they're like still the potato when they're underground, that frost doesn't matter really. So
Yeah.
it's only when it starts to come up, and even at that point, which it can take a couple weeks for it to really break the soil surface, and even then you're continuously burying it, so you're insulating it more. So
Yeah, the May first week of May, first couple of days of May, it's almost laughable that I'm planting potatoes and not tomatoes,
yeah,
especially highlighting this goal. Like that really tells me all that I needed to know. The additional details around the gap between March 15th and April 19th. That also, like, I'm not going to torture myself to go back, like, what was going on in your life during that time? I'm not doing all of that. I do know, though, that these crops we're talking about in the general average weather that we get during that time frame, they can withstand it. And in part, I know because I've done it before.
right.
So, all
Okay.
right.
Oh
Let me move
gosh,
on from my dates to back to the goals, and we're gonna go to what year are we in? Got the year.
25.
Spacing for you, not per plant, but per row.
Yes, I
And
did it.
this episode led into an episode about spacing because we talked quite a bit about that last year. I
Yes,
wish I would have made a spacing goal.
I did it, and I was successful with it, and I'm very happy with it, and I'm expanding it. So,
Okay, do tell.
well, I'm trying to think of where to start. So the
Mhm.
first one, I did with my corn. I've talked about it many times, where I did a double row on one side of my bed, and then a double row on the other, and I left the middle empty. Worked out
Mhm. Mhm.
swimmingly well. Great. I will do that again and every other year after this. And then for my Brussels sprouts for this year, I eliminated a row. Seems to be working very well as also. Things are able to breathe, move around. My tomatoes, I may have cut one plant out of the bed. Don't know if I needed to do that. I think I could kind of go either way on that. So, um, and then everything else, and the thinning of the carrots, that comes out to be spacing. My onions that I planted this year are spaced differently. So I eliminated some, gave them more room, and it seems to be going really good. We won't really tell until they start to get pretty big, which they're not, but they are growing. So we'll find out about that. But overall, I did a really good job with it. I was really happy with my squashes that I spaced. I spaced them almost 2 feet apart, I believe. And that worked out really well. At first, it was weird though, Batavia. It was like I'd go out there, and this has gotten me since I started gardening. You plant it and the bed just looks empty. But
Mhm.
by
Mhm.
the time, I told myself, because I know better now. Before I didn't know better, but I said, you know what, I'm just going to leave it, see what happens, and it worked out really good. All the plants were able to fill in. I feel like we got more harvests off of it. I don't find it a coincidence that I tweaked the spacing, and everything I changed the spacing on, I doubled the harvest of. So those California Wonder Peppers, they were spaced differently. double to triple the harvest. Maybe part in
Mm-hmm,
part the
mm-hmm.
variety, but totally something to do with this. The zucchini, I still got zucchini in the freezer. You know what I mean? And my wife wants to eat it all the
Yeah.
time. So, the corn, 100%, actually 110%, because some of them produce two heads or two cobs. So, we got that, so I think it was a win. It's tough though, because as I built my gardens and I leave those areas empty, I feel like I'm wasting space.
Mm-hmm,
You
mm-hmm.
know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
It's tough, right?
The temptation kicks in.
Mm-hmm.
You're thinking, oh, well, not only do you feel like you're wasting space, ultimately the next thing is I could grow more in this space,
Yeah,
let's not waste this space. Let's squeeze another cabbage in.
absolutely.
And are you sacrificing the many for this one additional cabbage? And you've already learned that in those cases previously you have been. So that's why you got to spacing was really a priority for you.
Yeah, it was one of those things too. The spacing was a priority. Well, first of all, it was because you made fun of me on the air about growing 18th century doorknob cabbages.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, that
what's
was laughable.
that's
Wait till we get done. Wait till we get done with this goal list. You'll have something to laugh at. Go on.
so. I mean, that kind of spurred it, and it wasn't because you made fun of me. It reminded me that, like, you know what, it could be bigger. There's something going on, and so it's funny. I planted my cabbages in the spring in an 8-foot row. I put 4 or 5 cabbages, and then and I got 4-pound heads off of them. In the fall, I planted 8 in a row, and you know what I'm getting? 17th century doorknob cabbages.
Mm-hmm.
Just super tiny. So big difference. Now, nutrition's a little bit different. Sunlight's a little bit different this time of year, but it's not that much different. It comes down to the spacing.
Do you have an interest in growing a smaller variety?
Of cabbage?
No. Yeah.
I did grow a smaller variety for a number of years, and now I've kind of decided that, if I grow a smaller variety, and let's say I'm getting 1-pound cabbages, I can get more cabbages and less plants if I grow a bigger variety, right? So if, like the flat Dutch we have gets 3 to
Mm-hmm.
5 pounds a head. Well, those
Mm-hmm.
little heads are a pound, pound and a half. So if I put spacing them like they're supposed to be spaced, 5 or 6, that's 6 pounds or almost 18 pounds from the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
So it came down to it, and it's a crop that I care about. So I want
Yeah.
to get as much as I can out of that crop.
Yeah. Uh, I'm just going to comment on one note around spacing, not per plant, but per row. And while that was your goal and your distinction, I think it's important for me in my garden and others to call out one of the things when you're managing spacing and you're looking at your rows, you're really protecting yourself if you're doing it air quote right from shading things out. So not only are you looking into say, hey, I want to make sure I have enough room, from plant to plant for those things to grow, to make sure I'm getting enough water for all of them, enough nutrients. But you're also protecting yourself against one crop. And if you're using multiple crops in the same bed, or even if you are using the same, the idea of things shading themselves out,
Yeah.
gosh, I have that minimally once every season. And it's not necessarily the same set of plants every season or even the same bed
Yeah.
and oftentimes it comes in where I'm just like running in with another seed or another transplant, like, oh, I'm just gonna squeeze that in there. Back to your point of it looks empty when you first start.
Right.
So
And the whole thing with the corn, that's where another way it came from, because I went really deep on reading about corn last year. And one of the things they said they were playing with is the amount of spacing between rows. And they had saw, like, I don't know, it was like 15-20% increase in harvest. Maybe it was
mhm.
only 5%. I don't know. It was whatever it was significant in a larger quantities that mega farms and stuff like that. But the whole
Mhm.
idea wasn't root spacing. It was getting the sun to hit all angles of the plant, which is something, a shame to admit, I had never thought of that. I had never
Yeah.
thought of hitting all angles. I always associated spacing with nutrients and roots, everything from the soil below, never
Mhm.
above. So I think that made a big difference as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, good job. So I'm peppering these in, going back to this was the first goal, but once we get to this, you'll understand why I moved this around. You ever heard of a you know what sandwich?
Mm-hmm. I eat them all the time.
Yeah,
In this
that's what
chair,
I'm
I eat them all the time.
that's what I'm serving up here. So this is double meat, I guess.
Oh boy.
If I go back to the last one that I didn't meet, automating my watering, which longtime listeners, thank you. You all know that this has been, one would argue, an Achilles heel for me. Another would argue something I've just not been interested in. Um, I'm going to say it's both. um, so I had a plan. I have the material. I was going to set up automated watering for my green stalk planters. And the year prior, the notes have that I struggled because the year prior we had like for Chicago, unreasonably warm weather for periods of time, and I felt like I was watering every day across the garden. Not every space in the garden was watered every day, but every day I was out there with a hose, and so that led me to last year saying, you know what, we got to put our toe into this automation, which I didn't do, plainly put. I don't even have a real good reason as to why, because it was this one was on my mind throughout the year. Um, and the planters did okay without the automation. This past summer wasn't, I don't think, as kind of hot, plainly put, as the previous. So the watering that I did by hand was enough. But it still added time. And that was the whole intention, to take some of the burden off of me as a gardener. And then also take some of the worry off of, are these planters getting enough water, plainly put. So my main set that are in the backyard did fine. The ones that I put for the first year in front of the house. So there's a 3 foot by 8 foot bed, and I use bed loosely. It's basically one layer of landscape timbers. I've grown various things in that space, and that measurement is distinct because there are two round beds in front of it, so it still gives me some walking space. This year, I put a couple of the planters up there, and they did well in the spring and the summer. That's a good example of those beets that I didn't come back in thin. Um, I mean, they're pretty cool because I can rotate them. I couldn't keep up with it. They dried out, and that would have been a prime candidate for, it's along the house. It would have been out of the way. I could have set up automated watering. And by the time I got to, oh, I'm going to plant these particular planters, and I should say they did well in the spring, starting with summer plants. So it wasn't like kind of the first thing I planted. So yeah, I mean, it's just, these are a lot of words to say I didn't meet the goal. This is a good example of needing to revisit, reevaluate. While it's not on my goal list for 2026, it's just something I just need to get done. You
Is
know,
it what does it entail? It's setting up a watering system for that.
it would be taking, so a regular hose, which I have like this one spout, and I have the um connector that has the four hose nozzles,
Mm-hmm.
right? I have more than one hose. So I would have one hose connected to it where I have the free form watering. I would connect the second hose to that spout that allows me to run the hose alongside the house. And if you're watching, I'm kind of like tracing the house now. I would take the, I don't know what they call it, like the piping or whatever, quite literally connected to the side of the planters. And like that's it. Like there would be a splitter that would allow me to do the daisy chain to the second planter or the third planter, depending on how many I had there. It's really, really simple. I just never got to it.
Yeah, sometimes those projects, first of all, doing water projects in the wintertime or early spring is the worst. Especially something like that where you got to tinker with it. You know what I mean? So
Hmm. Hmm.
I like to do it in the middle of summer when it's hot. I put on a bathing suit and I just go get wet. Don't even care. So I get
Well,
it. And a lot of times I get those projects done. I'll go out there. I'll just kind of I get to a point where everything's running, and then I'm like, okay, now I can do this project. You know what I mean? But you've got two. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah, well, the start of the season, which I did correct this at the end of last season. So the start, see, 2 falls ago, I did not, weatherize, winterize the garden. So I left the hose connected, and it took me weeks to get the hose nozzle off
Yeah,
to be able to get a new one on, right? It was a pain in the butt. That's not the reason why ultimately I didn't do this for the goal and for the automation. But I was planting in the garden and had difficulties like getting water easily throughout the garden for when I was planting.
bless you.
Excuse me. Thank you. Um, so excuse me. Oh goodness, that's a little bit nasty. Sorry about that. So by the time I got to, all right, now I have some water, I was focused on everything else. Had I had an easier time to water while getting, the hose on and all, there was a better chance for me just to go forward and get the watering set up for the season. Um, but either way, I mean, there's really no sugarcoating it. It's something that fell off of my radar at some point, closer to the middle of the season. By then, it was oh, I'll worry about it later. And later it's going to be this year. It's
Yeah.
just I know it's going to benefit me. Like
I mean, that's the way, and you just get to a point where you just get fed up and you're like, you know what, I'm going to do the project and be done with it. I'm going to ask you
yeah,
every
yeah. And
week if it's done yet.
this was and I didn't say this to Young Ben before the episode, but once I saw the notes for the goals, I was very tempted to say, you know what? I mean, do they really want to hear about the goals for last year? Yeah.
Dude,
I've not had a year that had these types of scores, but here we are.
this is the tough
Transparent.
part of this job, and we have put ourselves in this situation. I get a lot of comments on YouTube at Sandy Bottom Homestead about how real I keep it. And that's something that we went into this whole thing and said, you know what, we want to be real. We want to
Mm-hmm.
be honest with you. And I don't want you to think that everything we do in the garden is perfect. And it's tough, man. It's tough to sit here and be
Mm-hmm.
like, no, 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 or this failed, that failed. That stuff is really hard. So
Yeah.
it's, but it's one of those things. It's a small project. I think it's daunting. Once you get one done, the other one will do itself, basically. You know what I mean?
I
Like I
was
had to
watching one of
go ahead.
I was watching one of my series, and one of the doctors is ill, and he was thinking about potential complications with the surgery, and that fear basically kind of he was stuck,
Yeah.
right? Focusing on the small percentage of what could happen versus kind of the big benefit that could come from the surgery. And obviously, we'll see what happens. Surgery happens next week. But it's the idea of me putting something like this off really is wrapped around it's not going to work the first time. I'm going to have to tinker with it.
Yeah.
And so, do I have the head space or the capacity to kind of worry about this thing for the next coming weeks? And
Yeah.
so, in my immediate thought, it's like, oh, I'll get to it when I have time to really kind of focus on it, pay attention to it. So, it's that the potential of it not working immediately needing to be adjusted. And I have other things to do. Clearly, I probably should have done it between May 15th and April 19th,
Yeah.
probably. But putting it off because I know it's not going to be straight and to the point. There are other things that I can do that are going to be straight and to the point. I mean, that's kind of. I mean, it's procrastination at its best. So.
Hey, somebody's got to do it. Rather have it be you than
Mhm.
me.
All right. So moving on to a shared goal in part. We had different spins on it, and then I have one bonus that is a part of the meat. Another bonus at the center of the sandwich. So I wrote down a different thing for me when I originally made this for the episode. Leonard gave some additional details. For yours, he simply wrote canning, but I know that yours was more than just canning. This was this whole circle of the conversation around. Um, I think the prior year you had some potatoes that you didn't really enjoy that had been canned. You were talking about more or less, excuse me, being conscious of preserving across the board and it being able to really fulfill your diet, because there are foods that you really could only enjoy if you're able to control what went in them, right?
Hmm.
So preserving, with a highlight of canning. You talked about, how your wife was, like, looking for green beans, frozen green beans or something, I think, at the grocery store. You're like, "What
Yeah.
do you mean? You could have a freezer full of green beans." So, that was your goal, and then I have a piece of that for preservation as well.
So was it just canning or was it? I think it was just canning that I had
I mean, you
said.
generally it was more encompassing. You talked about preserving as
Okay.
well.
So I did do a fair amount of preserving. Um, I wanted to preserve, I believe it was 50% of my potato harvest, which I did do. So that worked
You wanted
out.
to do it immediately too.
And I
You're
did do it
immediately.
immediately. I went ahead and just did it. So that worked out well. I canned a fair amount of tomatoes. The caveat here, so I did something with my tomatoes. Um, I finally found a determinant slicer that I like. It's the Ace Bush 55. It's in the seed shop. Perfect tomato for me. I don't see a reason to switch to anything else. So that fulfilled our slicer need, right? So then we did Roma tomatoes for canning, but the bed that I put them in was spent. It was used up from the years, so it didn't produce super well. We were able
Mhm.
to get, I think I got like 10 cans out of it, which isn't much. And I've used two of them this week. So that's part of it. Um, you know, I did, first of all, I canned and preserved more last year than I did the year before. And we froze a lot of kale. We had to freeze peppers and zucchinis. We froze all of those. So I did do a fair amount. I think if, one of the things I like about these goals is, first of all, did you meet it? Yes, fine. It doesn't need to be a goal again. It just needs to be expanded on. Like it should, for me now, I say this and it always was before, except for the year before. It's a habit for me to think about canning um, my harvest. So it's just expand upon it, right? And the only thing really holding me back would be getting more tomatoes to grow. So, that comes down to now, which is like refilling my beds and feeding them and amending them appropriately.
Yeah. So my take, and I did look back at the notes, and you did talk about again, kind of overall preserving. So I was glad to hear about the potatoes. I don't remember us talking about how those went as far as you preserving them. Um, so mine was written as preservation plan exclamation mark.
Okay.
Steps include doing an inventory of the shelves and freezers and being more intentional about what I eat, focusing on what's at home. And I barely made this goal. And I say that because I didn't start the season off with a preservation plan. Like, ideally, I would have closed out the podcast episode, went and start surveying my shelves and the freezers, ideally. And even if I didn't get to it when we did the episode, maybe when I got outside between that March and April date, maybe. I didn't get to this until late in the summer. I did get to it though. So the preservations that I did last year, remember I told you, was primarily freezing and I did a little bit of drying, but no canning at all as far as I can remember. And I think my memory serves me correct. So a part of the inventory, it was very clear I had many more tomato products than I needed if I were to add more. Right, so it's that balance of I need to use what I have. I actually have lasagna in on top of the stove now that I used, some of my kale for and some of my tomatoes, well, all of the tomato sauce is mine. So again, just randomly, and for y'all that are really tuned in. It's 9 a.m. So there's that. Um, but but eating what's at home, like 9 a.m. making a lasagna means that for sure I'm going to have either lunch or dinner is going to be that lasagna. I don't have
Yeah.
to worry about trying to go out and grab something, which is important because it's still winter in Chicago. But it really the last like 3 months of the year really picked up when it came to this goal. And I'm gonna make lemonade out of lemons, being that it was so late in the year. It's still very much top of mind. So where I didn't do an inventory of the shelves in the spring, as I started doing an inventory coming into the later part of the year, kind of unrelated to um, this goal, but more specifically around kind of my purging goal and kind of being connected to what's actually in my home. And there's a whole conversation around that. So I'm going to call this a B, um,
A
a
B?
solid B, not a B plus
Oh,
as
okay.
far as the grading system. So goal achieved,
I didn't know I was
delayed,
supposed to
not
be given.
denied.
I didn't know I was supposed to be given letter grades for my goals. Jeez.
Yeah, well, remember the first one was 0 out of 10, so you can use that scale too. I mean, 7 out of 10 if I stick with that,
Yeah.
for this one.
Yeah.
Um,
So you have a bonus, right?
yeah, I have a bonus, and
Okay.
it's a sad story, so I'm not going to spend much time on it.
Well,
I was so enthusiastic about it, but it actually could. Mm,
hold on
hold
one
on.
second before you do it.
Okay.
So I just want to take a moment and let everybody know that the Planner app is a sponsor of the show. Use the link below to get yourself a discount. It's a drag and drop interface. If you want to have your goals met, planning is a big portion of it, and this will help you plan. It gives you a lot of different insights and tips and tricks and all that stuff. If you combine the Planter app, the Backyard Gardens podcast, Sandy Bottom Homestead, and Be Better Garden, you're covered all the way. I'm just saying, use the link below. Use it on any device you have. Get yourself a lifetime membership. I think it's like a 20% discount. It's pretty good, and it'll blow your mind. So check that out. But let's get back to Batavia's super sad story.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward because we have a question of the day. I wrote down have a kick butt fall garden.
Okay.
So, and
Wait. So we don't have a question of the day. We went back because I
oh
knew this was going to go long. So
well, let's settle in then.
let me ask this question: what is your definition of a kick butt fall garden?
I don't have a definition on the show. I said I know what that means to me. It's a feeling, right? Like it's a feeling that I'll have like when I look at my fall plantings and say, yeah. Now, I'm going to elaborate just a bit and I want you to jump in here. So, a part of the concern is that I really control the destiny of my fall garden. In previous years, I was either like, there's no transplants I'm finding in stores. I found, and since I've been planting multiple seasons, like maybe 7 years, I found transplants 1 year in the fall, and I'm still in the stores, right? And so, with that said, I know whatever I have, I need to either direct sow or start indoors and transplant out. I had everything that I really wanted to grow as transplants out on the back porch for weeks, right? And so this idea of do you meet, the goal because you really got your starts out, they got outside. So that was a step in the right direction. But classic Batavia, I planted one set too early, my lettuce, and the rest of them a tinge too late. So things that I wanted to plant included lettuce. I had kale, collards, cabbage, and then I had a couple of other. I had broccoli, and so what I ended up with was I got some lettuce. Um, some of it, like half of it, bolted, the other half I was able to enjoy. The kale and collards did really well. Really pleased with that. That went in like the first week of September in the garden. It went into a space that didn't have as much sun. The collards they reached their potential. Kale could have really got more growing done. So there's that. Cabbage, only one cabbage plant made it to transplant stage. And then broccoli, I think they died before they got transplanted as well. So, I mean, this one I made part of the goal. I didn't feel like, oh, this is wonderful. I really relied on maybe 60% newly planted for fall vegetables, and the other 40% was what was previously planted. Maybe it's 70-30. So I had 30% of the things that I ended up harvesting in the fall had been planted way before. And then the other 70% that I enjoyed were planted as a part of my fall design. So kick butt, no. Did I have a decent fall garden? Yeah. And ironically, last comment, because I thought this was going to go short for me, but here I am. Um, I have not recognizing this was a goal of mine for last year. Coming into this year, I definitely have goals around seasons, and it makes sense given the performance of last year's
Yeah.
fall garden.
Well, so
So
your
I
fall.
kind of I've made an adjustment, recognizing where I was for fall, but not remembering that it was a goal
So
for
was your
kick butt
fall
fall garden.
garden better than previous years?
Yes.
Well, then that's a kick butt garden.
Well,
I
yeah, no,
mean,
I'm not.
I
Listen,
mean, look,
we're not getting
you got to give
points
yourself
for
some
how many
grace.
goals we made or didn't make. I am very comfortable with, hey, this is where we are. After I got over the whole, I'm not going to ask you to skip this episode. For a minute, I was like, yeah, like more so, not embarrassed about not making them, but kind of what conversation can we have when it's like, nope, didn't make it. Nope,
I mean,
nope.
look, all right. If I had to give you a letter grade on that, I'd give you a B, a solid B.
B is in Batavia.
Yeah.
B is in brave.
B is in whatever the hell you want to say, but yeah. I
Brave
think
is more like here I am on
brave.
display.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, look, if you had the better garden than you had in previous seasons, I don't see a problem.
Mhm.
I mean, I get that it wasn't perfect. I think we did a whole subscriber episode about this too. Fall is a really hard season to grow,
Yeah.
and that's why we spend so much time talking about it. Because it is. I mean, look, spring is the easiest time to grow a garden.
Mhm.
Plain and simple.
Mhm.
Write that down. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, Leonard. Um, because each season has its own problems, but spring is one of those where it's like, okay, it didn't work. I can replant it. Okay, I can get it in the ground now. Okay, you got a whole season ahead of you. You know, it's just like with beekeeping. Like April and May are the best, easiest seasons because you could kill a queen and they'll remake it and you'll be fine. But as you get progressed through the year, it gets harder and harder. So
Mhm.
um, that's something that I think we need to crack a little bit more. And the delineation between spring, you like that big word, didn't you? Spring, summer, and fall. Really, the lines need to be unblurred a little bit. Um, and I think it's important. You know, one way my garden really progressed is when I realized that spring is different than summer and different
Mhm.
crops grow in that season. And I should not be trying to get them to work into the next season. I should be
Mhm.
separating them, getting them in, getting them out, and moving on. And then it goes for fall, especially. It's, you know, some of the plants, yeah, you just let them kind of run their course, but also you can plant a lot more than you should be. So
Yeah.
it just depends on
I
what you
think
want to do.
I think the cheat code that is my garden where I can have cool weather crops in July,
Yeah.
that cheat code has caught up with me.
Yeah. If you get too
So
complacent.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that, weather moves one way a little bit, right? You put things in a bed that's in the corner of the garden in the fall that's not the sunniest, and you pay for it. Like the cold came earlier this year than it has in the last handful of years, but not necessarily surprising for the area I'm in. And so I got caught with my garden pants down, so there's that bit of it too. But generally speaking, I look back, and as of this recording, I still have things that I pulled out of the garden in my freezer and in my fridge, and that's a huge win. I was thinking about this as we were walking to this episode, like, one of the things when you're evaluating your goals is, were they reasonable goals to begin with? That's kind of one of the first, when you're looking at, "Hey, some of them I made, some of them I didn't." Were
Right.
they reasonable? And I look back over all of these, and other than putting some more parameters around kick butt fall garden, like, I could have tightened that goal up, they all were very reasonable. Right, and
Yeah.
so on one hand, I give myself credit for, not pushing too hard, being, giving myself grace and being reasonable when it comes to what I set out to do. It's just the execution of it that I stumbled on in a couple of places. And to be quite frank, primarily, this is the embarrassing part. Like, I have stuff that's, on my refrigerator with magnets, 2026 goals has to be one of them.
Yeah.
Every time I open the refrigerator, I need to be able to say, "Oh, yeah, hey, okay."
Yeah. It's interesting. You said something. It's probably about 30 seconds ago, and I can't remember what it was. I wanted to comment on.
Are all the goals that you set reasonable?
Yes. Thank you. Man, damn, it's so
You're
simple,
welcome.
but I missed it. So one of the things, that's super common that you see and you hear about is somebody will start a garden bed and they'll be super happy with it the first year and want to go through with it and grow. And then the next year, they're like, I want to grow all of my own food. And they just go crazy. And that's a really, I don't want to say it's an unachievable goal, but it's not something that's easily taken. And it's the same with making your other goals is, it's too much to bite off. And I think all of our goals were very modest, I think is the
Mhm,
correct
mhm,
term. And I
mhm.
think it's important to keep it that way. I mean, one of the reasons why, and I say this a lot, is Leonard, write this down 10% improvement each year. That's all you need to do is make 10% improvement in your garden each year. And we took these simple tasks. I mean, look at what I talked about in this episode. Spacing, okay, when you plant, after you plant, it's done. You don't have to do anything else. Thinning, it kind of sucks, but you go through it. I done forgot all the other ones. What was the other one?
The preserving of it all.
And preserving. You know what I mean? Like preserving is a little bit more of a daunting task, especially if
Yes.
you're just getting started. For Batavia and I, it's a little bit different because we're seasoned preservers. We've done it. We know. So it was just kind of flexing, knocking the dust off and going back to it. So that wasn't too bad. But those little tiny goals, I mean, I produced so much more food on everything that I did those two goals on. It was amazing.
Yeah, interesting when you turn it on its head like that, if I look back at the goals I have, which I didn't really kinda pair this out, which again, I may need to go back based on some other things I've read over this last week and take a look again at, this year's goals, but
What do you
the
mean
first
red?
2, the
Where are you reading
automated
stuff? Hold on. Where are you reading stuff? Like
well, I'll
red.
talk to you about it offline.
Okay. Are you
Yeah.
reading gardening
The
stuff though?
automated well, I'll talk to you about it offline,
Oh,
good
yes, ma'am.
grief.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
Yeah. So the automated watering for the planters, and then the plan a portion of warm weather plants by May 1. Both of those are in response to troubles I've had in the past,
Yeah.
right? The next one, when it came to like the preservation plan, I view that as an opportunity for growth. Now I have struggled with, keeping myself organized throughout the garden season when it came to preserving. So there's a little bit of like, hey, trouble from the past, but it's more of, hey, I want to enhance this gardening experience from, basically garden bed to table, right? And this is a way to do that. And so when you think about kind of, hey, what did you accomplish? There's some things that can really be service tick boxes, check boxes, you've done it and then you move on. There's some of them that make you more rich as a gardener, and I like to look at the goals and what I want to accomplish generally in the garden season with that kind of view. And sometimes it's more of, again, things are just checklist items because that's the way I organize it in my mind. But some of it is really more of like, how do I move to this next step or this next stage as a gardener? You know.
Yeah. Um, that's a really important thought process too. That moving. We've talked about different levels of gardening before. Like we've
Mhm.
workshopped it, and I don't think we've ever done an actual show about it. And I don't know a way to do it appropriately. I think it's part of it, but those different levels are a big difference. And let me ask you this question:
Mhm.
um, when you make your goals for the year on this show, do you make are those the only things you do all year, or as the season goes on, you're like, you know what, I need to do this? You kind of
Yeah.
make like sub goals.
Yeah, well, I have goals that even at the recording of the episode that we don't cover off on just for time. And then as I go out throughout the garden season, I'll adjust, maybe adding one or two. I don't normally say I'm going to remove one. Importantly, though, because I mean, you don't want to have 20 goals. So I'm trying to have some discipline when it comes to that. But I also, which is unique, I also edit out anything from the show that we've already covered as a goal. So if I've added something from 2 years ago to this year's goals, I'm not talking about it as one of the goals on the show because we've already talked about it,
Right.
2 years ago. So there's that. So there is that the desire to have like kind of that filtering of, are these fresh and new for our discussion? And so that also introduces to the whole, are these reasonable goals as you look back? And again, in this case, they were. I look at the goals for this coming garden season, and even now, kind of through the lens of, you had some hits and misses, strikes and balls, maybe not, because I think strikes and balls are both positive, right? Anyway,
No,
so
strikes are bad,
so
balls are good. And that came. As soon as I said that, I wish I didn't said it.
I guess if you're at up to bat, you don't want to
you
get a
you don't
strike.
want to
Anyway,
strike
so
out.
yeah, yeah. So I look and say, no, these are still reasonable.
Yeah,
Right. This is still something that I want to accomplish. And I think that's important too, because it's
yeah,
okay if you go back and say, maybe
yeah.
not.
I mean, I make micro goals all the time. All
Mhm,
the
mhm,
time. I'll go out there and be like, you know what, I need to start doing this. Okay, I need to do this. I need to do
mhm,
that.
mhm.
Tasks and goals are different.
Yeah. Yep.
So, but I identify things that need to be improved. And one thing that you can notice from our goals that we had set last year, at least, hell, I already forgot the goals for this year. I should probably look at them, but it's plain and simple. We identified a problem and we're making a fix for it. The goal is to fix it. So you can say what you want about that. It can go either way, but it's something that's really important, and I support it. So make your goals,
Yeah. The
identify
thing
your
that
goals from last year, and see if you made them.
absolutely. And the thing I'm going to do as a result of evaluating last year's goals is I'm going to go back to this year's goals and create a couple of bullets around how to achieve them
Yeah,
versus just knowing that I'll get it done, you know.
yeah. I think that's a good thing, especially for you in Chicago, where I mean it's cold. All right, look.
Not a whole lot more I'm doing.
This show has been a little bit depressing, but it's been very interesting. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, actually.
I'm not depressed. I still have new year, new me.
There you go. That's why we wait till the new year to do this, because we could record the next few episodes and not have to suffer. Because it's
Mhm,
tough, man.
mhm.
I can't express that enough. I know people are like, I don't care, but it's tough. Either way, look, please come help support the show any way you can. Our goal is to help people grow and to keep them growing and to help them improve through our dialogue. So please come get some seeds from us, become a subscriber, watch us on YouTube, all that stuff. We had a comment from YouTube. I did forget, but we will do it the next show. So come do that. Leave your questions there. If you have, send them to bygquestion@gmail.com, or you can go to our Facebook group and do that. So either way, thank you so much. And remember, we do two things on this show, and we do it damn well. We learn to grow, and we grow for change.
See ya.